Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, we'll be discussing how to solve a problem which is related to bank reconciliation statement. However, it is an unfavorable balance of cash book that we have to deal with. Let's go ahead and figure it out with the illustration that has been mentioned below. So when we talk about unfavorable balance, it is similar to the working that we do as per the favorable balance. However, there is one trick that you have to understand when you are dealing with unfavorable balance. Now, unfavorable balance or overdraft balance, both of them mean the same. That means that is negative balance. Hence, when we talk about understanding in the favorable balance, when we took the entry which has been already recorded or already reflected, you don't have to worry about it, and the entry which is supposed to be recorded is something that you have to worry about. That was into favorable balance. Now in unfavorable balance, you have to understand that the entry which has been already recorded, you have to worry about that part, or you have to take that book into consideration. Hence, we'll have to take the only criteria here is to understand that there is a flip of understanding. That means in favorable balance, where you have to understand which is the next book where this entry will be reflecting. In the same manner, in unfavorable balance, you have to understand which is the book in which this transaction is already reflecting. According to that, you have to use the formula. That means add less, less add. The only thing that is changed, rest everything remains the same under unfavorable balance or dealing with overdraft balance. Let's go ahead with the illustration and figure out how to solve this problem. On 31st March 2005, Rakesh had an overdraft balance as shown in his cash book of rupees 8,000. That means Rakesh had an overdraft balance, a negative balance as per his cash book, which has been mentioned in the question. Now let's go ahead and understand few more details on this. The second transaction refers to check of rupees 2,000 had been deposited by him, but they were not collected by the bank. So while understanding or while making rectifications for this entry, you have to understand that if check has been deposited, in which book the entry will be shown first. That book correctness or incorrectness will be taken into consideration, and according to that the formula will be used. Here we don't have to worry about whether this has been entry or this entry has been already mentioned in this book, and then which entry will be recorded or which book will be further going to ahead, or which book is supposed to be recorded there. You don't have to worry about that part. The only thing that you have to worry about in which book the entry has been already recorded. That is the consideration that you have to take. Let's go and figure out the next transaction details. The next transaction details says that he issued a check of rupees 800, but they were not presented for the payment to the bank. That means it's a similar case whereby they have issued a check to any of the client amounting to rupees 800. However, they haven't presented this for the payment. The last transaction says there was a debit into his bank account for rupees 60 as interest and rupees 100 as bank charges. Hence, this entry will be first reflected into the passbook as compared to the earlier one which reflected into the cash book. Now, let's go ahead and prepare the bank reconciliation statement for Mr. Rakesh, but before that, we'll complete with the working here. Now that we have mentioned all the details here, that means all the working note has been done, we'll go ahead and start with the first transaction. The first transaction relates to check deposited by him for rupees 2,000, however, they were not collected by the bank. Now, this transaction, check deposited by him, refers to the first entry. Where do you think this first entry will be reflecting into? That's correct. It's his cash book. He has deposited checks amounting to rupees 2,000, but they were not collected by the bank. Now, when you're dealing with unfavorable balance, you don't have to worry about what is going to happen or which book the entry isn't reflecting into. What you have to worry about is which book it is ideally reflecting right now. So this book is already, or this transaction is already reflecting into cash book, whereby there is an addition here. Now, if it is addition, cash book is initially wrong because there is an overdraft balance as per cash book. Hence, cash book is wrong and passbook is correct. So that means addition into the wrong book as per the formula goes to subtraction. Hence, we'll be subtracting this amount into the cash book. Now, the next transaction also refers to checks which were issued for rupees 800. However, they were not presented to the bank for payment. That means a check has been already issued, but there was no simultaneous payment that was made because they were not presented for payment. Now this transaction also refers to the cash book because whenever you issue a deposit, it is first recorded into the cash book. However, this specific transaction is reducing the balance of the cash book. That means subtraction is happening as it is related to cash book. That means a wrong book. So subtraction, wrong book, you will go ahead and further add this transaction to rectify or prepare the bank reconciliation statement. Hence, it will be added into the addition column. The last transaction refers to there was a debit into his passbook. That means a reduction into his passbook, rupees 60 for interest and rupees 100 for bank charges. As you know, passbook is correct. That means this specific transaction will first reflect into passbook. The correctness or incorrect is the second part. However, as there is a charge which is already reflecting into the passbook for rupees 60 as interest and 100 as bank charges, this specific transaction relates to the passbook first. Now, into this passbook, what do you think? If there is a charge, that means either there is a subtraction or either there is an addition here. Correct. There is a subtraction in this specific problem. Hence, it is related to subtraction. It is related to a correct book. Hence, we'll be subtracting these items. Hence, when we talk about reflecting these details into the passbook, it is actually a subtraction. Now, the third transaction that refers to bank charges and bank interest being debited into the passbook, that means this specific transaction has been already recorded into the passbook. As it is an unfavorable balance question, hence will be reflecting only to this specific passbook itself, as the first entry has been made into the passbook. Now, as you know that this is a reduction in the bank account, that means there is already a subtraction. If there is related to the correct book, that means as passbook is correct and cash book is incorrect, being overdraft in cash book. Hence, when we talk about this specific transaction being recorded into the passbook, subtraction correct book, you will subtract it. That means it will be recorded on the subtraction side. Now that with all this, we have already completed the working note, we'll go ahead and prepare the statements, that is the bank reconciliation statement, and figure out how much is the overdraft as per the passbook. Now, as this is overdraft as per cash book, the amount that will be mentioned in the final column will always be into negative. That means we have to mention that into brackets. So whatever will be added will ideally be subtracted. That means minus 8,000 plus whatever amount is added. Hence, we'll first go ahead and mention all the entries which have been mentioned down here in the working note. The first illustration that it stated, the check which was deposited but not cleared was supposed to be subtracted, hence it has been added into the subtraction column. Next illustration which stated which the check was issued for rupees 800, however it was not presented for payment, will be added as it was supposed to be added into the addition side. Now let's go ahead and mention that in the addition side itself. The last transaction that referred to bank charges and interest charges being levied onto the passbook, which were ideally supposed to be subtracted, will be mentioned in the subtraction side. So let's go ahead and mention that in the subtraction side itself. So now with this, we have come to the closure of all the amounts being mentioned into the specimen. That means the bank reconciliation statement. We'll go ahead and figure out what is the final total that has to be mentioned in the outer column. Now, as you can see, we have mentioned all the items into the outer column. We'll further go ahead and figure out how much is the overdraft as per the passbook. So now that we have figured out what is the overdraft as per the passbook, which is always or supposed to be mentioned in the brackets, make sure any item which is supposed to be a part of overdraft will be always recorded into brackets, which denotes that it is a negative balance. That means overdraft as per passbook that we have figured out is 9360 rupees. That means 9360. So with this, we have come to the closure of this sum, where we have understood that if there is an unfavorable balance illustration, we have to understand the first part. That means you have to go ahead with the illustration or the entry where the first entry, that means if there is a cash book overdraft or passbook overdraft, and if that specific transaction has been first reflected into cash book or passbook, either that consideration has to be taken. Unlike the one that we have understood in the favorable balance, that means second entry or the entry where it has to be passed into the considerate books. For example, if you have understood that in favorable balance, the entry where it has been already passed, you don't have to worry about that. Where it is yet to be passed is something where you have to worry about. Similarly, in unfavorable, you have to worry about where the entry is first passed. you don't have to worry about where it is yet to be passed, because in unfavorable it is a slight change where we have to understand favorable and unfavorable goes vice versa like this. So in unfavorable you have to only understand where it has been first passed, and according to that you'll use the formulas so that you can get a flawless bank reconciliation statement when it is overdraft balance or unfavorable balance to deal with. So I hope this video has got you a lot of clarity on how to make an unfavorable balance illustrations or unfavorable balance or overdraft balance bank reconciliation statement. Apart from that, you also have to make sure that whenever it is unfavorable balance, the overdraft balance will be always mentioned in the negative, and whatever has to be added is ideally supposed to be subtracted. For example, in this illustration, 8,000 was the overdraft balance and 2,000 was something, or probably 800 is something that he had to subtract from it, although it has been mentioned in the addition column. But as 8,000, the higher number is already into negative, whatever you add, the final balance will be already a negative part unless and until the addition amount is more than 8,000. Hence, minus 8,000 plus 800 will give you a negative 7,200, which is also mentioned into bracket. Hence, this negative will be added to the negative, that means minus 7,200 minus the amount that is supposed to be subtracted, which gives you the total of 2160. So minus 7,200 minus 2160, that means ideally you have to club it together, which gives you a total of 9360. This is how you prepare the illustration for bank reconciliation statement whenever an unfavorable or overdraft balance is supposed to be mentioned. Also, a part to mention or a part to remember that the overdraft balance as per the ending. So if the overdraft balance in the start or the top or the beginning is in negative, that means a bracket has been mentioned. Similarly, the overdraft balance into the negative, which is the answer, will also be mentioned into the bracket. So I hope this sum gives you a lot of clarity about how to solve an overdraft balance. So thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned with eKida and keep subscribing to eKida.